I'm on a mission to beat 100 video games every year, and I just finished replaying the Resident Evil 2 remake, so here's a quick spoiler-free review, plus my thoughts on how a second playthrough has changed my perspective on it. Fun fact, this is the very first game I beat in 2020 when I started doing this whole thing, way before I came up with all my rules about what it takes to officially beat a game, and back then I just played Leon's initial campaign and I didn't play as Claire at all. That was still an incredible experience, and good enough for me to consider it one of the best survival horror titles of all time, but it always bugged me a little to call it finished when it still had an entire character story I hadn't even touched. So finally, after almost 5 years away, I decided to install Resident Evil 2 once again and start a brand new save file playing first as Claire and then as Leon for the second run, and boy am I glad that I did. First of all, the game still looks and sounds amazing, even though it's coming up on 6 years old. The graphics and lighting effects, especially inside the police station, could have been created yesterday and they would hold up perfectly. All of those gorgeous technical elements come together to create a tone that is way scarier than the original material, which was great, but in my opinion lost a lot of what made the OG Resident Evil a true horror game. There is no mistaking this for anything but a horror game now, and countless times I would be carefully rounding a corner or sprinting from another threat only to run headlong into some ghastly abomination with the coolest, most gruesome visual design you can imagine, and I would just turn into jelly. What I really love the most about the classic survival horror genre though is the exploration and resource management. Resident Evil is the king of that, and this is no exception. All of the areas you explore are expertly designed so that even a map of just 6 or 7 rooms can take hours to explore thoroughly, and you always have at least a vague idea where to go thanks to the notes you read or the key items you pick up. And even playing on normal, I was often counting my bullets in the single digits and holding on to my last health item, hoping it would be enough to survive the next encounter, especially on the second run. Playing as Claire the first time round, I was surprised at how different it was from my original playthrough as Leon. The puzzles were mostly the same, but there were whole sequences, boss fights, and even a playable character that I had no idea existed. And then on the next go round, I was really impressed with how they weaved the specifics of Claire's campaign in with the new elements of the second run, like certain new areas, different puzzles, the list goes on. So now that I've beaten the true final boss and really truly finished the game, I can look back on how I originally felt about it and say I feel mostly the same, just more so. The Resident Evil 2 remake is amazing, even if you just play as one character one time, but the added complexity of the second run gives you even more to love and occasionally piss your pants over. I rank every game I managed to beat, and before I picked this back up, it was sitting comfortably at 23 all time, which is already an absolute god tier assessment. But now that I've played through all of the main story's content and seen everything else there is to see, I have to acknowledge that even at that rank it was slightly undervalued. So now it sits at a slightly higher number 18 all time, which is much higher than the likes of RE Village and the RE3 remake, but not quite up to the level of Resident Evil 7 or the RE4 remake. Of course, all this is subjective, and I'd love to hear your opinion if you feel differently, and I also love it when those of you who made it this far take a second to like the video, so thank you very much for that. Replaying games is something I've just started doing in my free time, so if there's a game you think I should replay, let me know, but please be patient, like multiple years patient. I am currently replaying Demon Souls because I've decided to eventually replay every FromSoft Souls-like, so feel free to follow if you'd like to see whether my feelings on that change after I've beaten it a second time.